Welcome, everyone. This is Eddie Casado. I'm the affiliate and technology partnership manager at Convert. And today we have a very, very exciting session with Sani and Iqbal. Sani, Iqbal, how are you guys doing?
As
Good.
excited as you are.
Very excited.
Good. We're going to give 15 seconds or so for people to start joining the webinar. If you're not, you're here, we're going to be going through actually using AI beyond just mentioning AI on LinkedIn posts and looking and reacting to people's LinkedIn posts on AI. Maybe you'll start creating some LinkedIn posts after today's session. Iqbal and Sani are going to be showing us how to actually create an optimizing assistant using N8N. I don't really know how that's supposedly to be pronounced, but we're going to be looking at how to build something for real with AI and agentic AI. So with that, let's just give a few seconds again to for everybody to start joining. I can see that Lucia is part of the room now. Hi, Lucia. It's great to see you.
Hi, Lucia.
Yes. There you go. So great. And just want to mention that Vlad is on the controls today, joining us from Team Convert. So this is
Alan is here as well. And Bjorn. Wow.
There you
Bjorn. Hello, Alan. Wow. Andy. We can just keep saying hi to people for an hour. And everyone's happy.
I think that's going to be today. We have more than 200 people coming
All the
into
best
the
people.
session today, so we might just as well spend 10 minutes saying hi to everyone. Yo,
Abby,
people.
wow.
Hey, Abby.
So good.
I was expecting this was going to be fun because I looked at the people that were joining the webinar and I said, man, this is a good bunch of people that are going to be hosting today.
Yeah. All the best people are here, like Lucia said.
There you go.
Oh, Adiki, my buddy from Serbia. Hey, good to see you, man.
Good. All right. I think that we're on a roll now. So why don't we get this started? Again, this is Eddie Casado from Convert. I am the affiliate and technology partnerships manager at Convert. If you're unaware, Convert is a leading A/B testing tool for those of us that are into the experimentation space. Now, with that being said, today we're going to be looking at actually building something out of AI. All right. And with that, I'd like to give the floor to Sani and Iqbal to introduce themselves. We're going to be actually showing you how to do this because today I am not talking. I'm just looking and hosting. So hoping to learn as much as I can from today's session. So Sani and Iqbal, why don't you introduce yourselves and talk a bit about your background and what you're hoping to achieve today.
Iqbal, go first, please.
Okay, so my name is Iqbal. I do experimentation. I've also been messing around a lot with AI. I've got a development background, so I've been really getting into, lately just kind of like training models. But with this, it's all about N8N and workflows, and that's like another sort of side passion in trying to, figure out how to properly use AI to create workflows. So yeah, so that's what I'm hoping to.
I need to
get
do
into today.
now. I need to do my introduction. A lot of you in the chat know me from being on my podcast, from what I see here. So I host No Hacks. I am a web developer, CRO consultant, and I think those two tracks are kind of merging into workflow and system ops. And this is what I'm getting into. This is what we'll be talking about today, of course, with a dash of AI.
Great. Thank you both. I just want to be, I'm not going to say the ignorant one in the room, but I do want to say I don't know, like every time I see something N8N, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I don't even know what it is. It's like when the cloud came out, right? Like the cloud, or you could kind of grasp the concept, but it wasn't until 10 years later that I figured how it worked. So before we jump into the webinar, are you guys covering exactly what all of these things are? Or should we just spend a minute saying what's the stack look like for today's webinar so people know?
I'll explain how it will go, and then will go into details. So what we'll do is we have the workflow building part is going to be a pre-recorded video that will play. The reason we're doing it this way is because we want you to be in chat and answer questions real time as people are watching. And if we're building the workflow, that's not going to happen. So we will talk about all of that. There will be that workflow video. Then there's going going to be a dedicated Q&A session after. And now for that video specifically, Iqbal, you can just explain the details.
Yeah, I think we're just going to go a high-level overview of a workflow, particular workflow, just so you can get familiar with NA10 as a kind of like the interface that you'd be using to build agents, and at the same time be going into tips about what to look out for when building workflows with NA10, specifically like with agents and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully everything will be self-sufficient like when we play the video. But like Sani said, we'll be in the chat to kind of fill in any details that people might want to have. And then hopefully there's going to be time for questions and answers at the end of that as well.
Great. All right. I think that's the perfect setup. Why don't we just go ahead and get started with that section of the webinar? And if anybody has questions, Sani, Iqbal, myself, and Vlad are going to be in the chat answering questions as we go. And then we'll have some opportunities at the end for a live Q&A. All right. So let's take it away, guys.
All right, Iqbal, are we ready to finally have a look at the difference between linear workflows with AI in them and AI agents, when to use each one, which one is better for which kind of tasks?
Yeah, let's get straight into it. So we can start with workflows. So we're all familiar with workflows. Workflows look like this. They're sequential. It's a systematic sequence of tasks. You have an input and you have a number of nodes or steps that you go through. You go through step one, and then at the output of step one becomes the input of step two. The output of step two becomes the input of step three, and so on until you finish your goal. Now, this is a predictable sort of structure. It's sequential, it's linear, and also it doesn't really react well to problems in the output. So say step two gives you some output that is a little bit out of the normal bounds of what step three is expecting. That could break the workflow. So now AI
in more simple terms, its pros are also its cons, right?
Yes, it's predictable. It's what you're going to get out of it, and it's just goes from one thing to another until it's finished its task. And AI agents is kind of like, what if you gave the workflow a brain? And from that perspective, all the AI agent cares about really is the task. What task do you want the agent to complete? And the agent will just need to figure out on its own how to complete a task. So what an AI agent is a very simple brain connected to various tools, and given a task to say, go away and figure this stuff out. Use the tools as necessary and give me something at the end. And with an AI agent, they can make simple decisions, so they're a little bit more dynamic than the predictable sort of a sequential workflow. And because they're non-linear, so if you wanted to do step 3 first instead of step 1, well, if that makes sense, it will make that decision and it will do that. And all it really cares about is the task that it needs to complete. And all it really knows is what tools that it has available to it to complete those tasks. And because of that reason, it's less predictable. So it is prone to hallucination. And if we now put the two side by side, workflows versus agents, we can see the kind of differences. Workflows are defined as static, they're predictable and linear, but some steps may need human input. That's another thing. So they need somebody to make simple decisions for them, and that's usually going to be the human. Whereas agents, they're a little bit more dynamic, can deal with unpredictableness. They can make simple decisions. They're non-linear, and like I say, they're adaptable, but to a point. But they can be unpredictable. And again, hallucination is a really big problem. So really what we need is we need both in our workflows. And this is essentially leads into NA10 because...
And this is going to depend on what you want to do. And you need to make the right decision. At one point you said, and I think this is really important, at one point you said that if the agent thinks it makes sense. Now, the brain of the agent is an LLM you plug into it. So whatever the LLM decides is better is going to be that. But it's also your job to have a good system prompt, use the right LLM model. So whatever makes sense, it's your job to teach the agent what the right option is in most cases. So that's one thing. I would also compare these two, to workflow and an agent, to when you go to a new city and you ask a stranger for directions. They'll tell you, walk to the city council, take a left, walk to the theater, take a right, by the fortress, take another right, and you will have a ride to your hotel. That is a workflow. You have the exact steps you need to take. If there's a closed road, if something is wrong in the directions, you'll be lost. You have to ask again. So the workflow breaks. An agent would be typing the directions, the destination in Google Maps, and have Google Maps calculate possible routes for you. So Google Maps is that agent that looks at traffic, congestion, road closures, whatever else there is. It knows the outcome, and it uses all of the tools available to get to that outcome. Now, let's have a look at NA10 and why NA10 is important, and why we both think it's a really good entry point for anyone who wants to start using agents or creating agents.
If you go to na10.io, you get this as a web page. They explain their benefits quite clearly, even though, and you mentioned this before as well, is that it says it's for technical teams, but it's really for everybody because it's so easy to get started, and we're going to dive into that. But really, it's just a no-code way of building workflows and building simple agents, and it's very, very, very powerful. And the best way to get started is to head on over to na10.io and just sign up. Just know that you do have a self-hosted option because this is open source. So you can just run it on your local machine or run it on a local server. But just to get started, the best way, head on over to NA10 and create an account.
Easiest way by far. Just go there. You said no code. The other aspect is that this is visual. You literally see your workflow when you click execute workflow. When it's running, you see the node spinning up and sending information back and forth. So you don't need to understand the code, but if you understand how code and programming works, it's going to be easier. But if you don't, it's going to be the visual aspect of it makes it easy to get started.
Yeah.
So like you said, go to na10.io. You can sign up for a SaaS version of it where they host your NA10 instances, or you can try to host it on your own. There are other hosting providers that do it now. Same thing with like WordPress years ago and decades ago. You can host it yourself. You can have it on a server. You can even WordPress.com can host it for you. NA10 it's open source, so this gives it all the flexibility in the world in terms of how you want to host it.
Yeah.
What is the building blocks of a typical NA10 workflow?
Okay. So when you arrive on the overview screen, you'll see a list of your workflows, and you can just create a workflow here, and you get a canvas. So when you get started, you'll see on the right-hand side all of the triggers, all of the nodes that you have available to you. Now, the most important one, and the one that it just kind of tells you to do first, is to set up a trigger node. And a trigger node can be anything from a chat or getting or runs on a sort of like every minute or every hour or whatever, runs from a RSS feed as a trigger. You got whole load a bunch of triggers here, and you can also have chat, and you can also have chat as a trigger. So if we add chat trigger here, you'll see here that this is the first node, and you can just you can just get started doing the setup. But what I'm going to
it's right here in the NA10 workflow screen where the chat happens. So if you pop it, it slides up from the bottom. Yeah, exactly.
So I can say hello, and so far it's not connected to anything, but you'll see that hello has triggered. Now, if I go to create a new node, and let's create an AI agent here, you'll see on the left is the input from the previous node, our chat trigger. And you can see that the chat input is hello that we've got, and that's going in as an input. The thing in the middle is all of the stuff that you can do with that specific node. And that's going to be different depending on which node it is that you're using. And you have all sorts of nodes available, like connections to Google Docs, Sheets, Airtable, all of those kind of all of those kind of nodes. And that's going to be pretty different. This middle thing is going to look different in each of those nodes. But the left is always going to look the same. It's the input. And you can drag and drop these inputs anywhere you want. And then on the right is what gets output from that node. So basically, if I set it up with some rules to say, AI agent, do this, this is your job, then it's going to run, and then it's going to give it an output, which is going to feed into the next node. So that is a really simplified architecture of a workflow. The other thing to bear in mind is from an AI agent perspective, you have these different sort of nodes available. So I haven't set up the AI agent, which is why it's got that red warning symbol. But you have to give AI agent a model. So they give it a chat model, and you tell it which chat model you want. That's fine.
And just to be clear, you will need your own credentials, your own API keys that you put in your own instance, and then you set up the connection, and then you can have a selection of any LLMs. I mean, anything available is going to show up here.
Yeah. And at any point, you can view the documentation here for a specific node. So that takes you through how to set it up, all the connections and stuff. Every AI agent needs a memory. So we're going to put in some simple memory so that just, don't worry too much about the settings. Context window length is how many chats it's going to keep in its memory. But we're just going to keep that as simple. And then here is where you can add your tool. And then in your tool, you can add, anything you want, Google Sheets, whatever it's got available to it. You can even connect it to your own APIs or whatever. And it can even create another AI agent tool. So you can even connect another AI agent as a tool. So you got a whole bunch of tools available to you. VV8 Vector Store as well. You got that available as a node. So as a tool. So basically, you've got also another thing to bear in mind actually is that you can. This is really, really powerful in my opinion, which is you can require the AI agent to output a specific format. And this is super important because then the format is really predictable going into the next step. And then it gives you another sort of item here, which is output parser. And when you click on the output parser, you can do structured output parser, and then you can just give them an example of the structure that you want as an output from that AI agent. So then that way you kind of have a very reliable sort of output from an input.
And why this matters is because any node that's connected, that follows the agent, or anything in the workflow that follows the agent, will always be able to expect the same output field and will be able to rely on those fields in whatever happens after the agent in the workflow. Otherwise, it could be, sometimes you could say, here's your email body and here's your email subject. The other times it would call it something else. So it's completely unpredictable when you're doing workflows, even though what happens inside the agent is not linear and deterministic. The agent decides, but the rest of the workflow still needs to rely on the output of the agent, and this is the way you do it.
Yeah. And I would also tick this just to say auto fix a format. So if for whatever reason the AI agent doesn't meet these requirements, it will try and auto fix it before it sends it out.
Perfect. Yeah. I think we're ready to start looking at our example now.
Yes, let's get. Okay, let's take a typical sort of example of a workflow as CRO people will get a GPT screen, and we'll typically want to ask it something. So Sani, if you could take it away.
Yep, and everyone attending, if you've never done this, you're free to leave the webinar, because I know everyone has at some point gone to ChatGPT and asked how it can help them improve a certain web page. So let's ask how it can improve this specific product page. And it will give us some kind of generic advice, something that kind of applies to everyone. Hero section storytelling. It reads the content of the page and tells us what it thinks we want to hear. The problem with this is it's lacking context. So we would have to go to GA4, we would have to go to Search Console to get the information ourselves, how many people are coming from mobile devices, desktop devices, tablets, how many people are using organic search to get to this page, what are the keywords those people are using, and then we have to look at the page to see if it answers all those questions that the specific user base we're dealing with has. And finally, the problem with this is that it's reading the page, but it's scraping the page, which means it doesn't know if your mobile version is responsive in a wrong way and messed up in a certain way. It's reading the code, the HTML output of the page. It's not using any vision models to look at this specific page. So your desktop version might be completely different than your mobile version. I mean, you can have different colors and fonts if your designer decides to do that on desktop and mobile. So two things we want. We want context and we want efficiency.
Yeah. And also to hit the efficiency thing as well, there's a lot of other work that would have no doubt gone on before you even get to this chat screen. So going into analyzing GA4, GSC, etc. So we want to try and really shorten all of that process as well, which is what we're going to get into with the NA10 workflow.
This is what our NA10 workflow looks like. So the user input here, and then we have the AI agent that's going to process that user input or URL. We're taking the screenshot of the page. We're looking at mobile or desktop, depending on traffic. Then we are writing the prompt dynamically, and we are prompting an LLM to analyze the page. And finally, we are storing all of this in Airtable. And this is our table, our database URL. We have contextual data that's produced by the agent. And we have the final analysis, and we have the URL for the screenshot. So let's look at these segments of the workflow one by one. Let's look at it in some more detail. Now we're using a chat trigger because it's easiest to demonstrate here. And of course, it's not the only kind of trigger you can have in NA10. I mean, we looked at it a bit earlier. There's more triggers than you can imagine, basically. We're using chat trigger because it's right here. It's easy to demonstrate, and it's easier to follow and to show in this webinar. So this is the reason we're using the chat trigger. After we use the chat trigger, we want to clean up the user input, which means we need whatever I write, if it contains a URL, I need to extract relative URL and absolute URL so we can pass it to the agent and the further nodes. We have a research agent that's going to, for that URL, get device category for that page. We connected Google Analytics already, so we're not going to show that today. Get how many organic sessions or the traffic distribution for a URL that we are entering. Get all the keywords people are using to get to this page, and then we have the output parser so it can output the data in the way we want it. Then we are taking a screenshot of the page using a free service called Browserless. We're uploading that to a public URL on Amazon S3, and then we are, based on all the contextual data, writing the prompt dynamically to analyze the page, and then we're running that prompt to analyze the screenshot and analyze all the contextual data. And then finally saving that as a new row in Airtable. This code node is just to format it, so it's returned in chat as a formatted text. So I know a lot of information, but let's slowly look at each one of these one by one. And one thing to remember, we're not trying to give you a template you should copy. We're not saying you should copy and run this at your job. We're saying this is how this works. Whatever kind of tools your agent needs, whatever you need in your workflow, feel free to adjust, and please adjust and use only the data and information that you actually need. So Iqbal, want to take over? I need a breath.
So from a high level perspective as well, one thing you'll notice is that we're very, very deliberate about cleaning up output before going into the next node. So that's something that you're going to see as a pattern going forward. What are we doing as an input? What's going to go out as an output? making sure that we have everything prompted, everything in a proper structure. And you'll notice that we've got an agent which is very, very specifically tasked with a narrow sort of set of goals, narrow task, and it's got access to GSE, GA4, which as tools, which means that it's going to be able to access those tools to be able to answer that question. What we don't want to do is throw all of this into one big agent. So we've very deliberately sort of like split things up so then we can see clearly what's going in and out of each and every step.
And the reason for that is the more complex your components and your agents are, more likely they're to break, hallucinate, whatever else. So you want minimal responsibility for any AI agent that you have. It should only be allowed to do what it needs to do and nothing more. That's the best design principle for AI agents that you can apply, because the more complex it gets, easier it breaks. And never forget that. Let's look at this. Let's look at the first get URL from user input section of this workflow. This is when chat message is received. This is the N8N chat. Like I said, we did not want to add any other triggers because chat is right here, but this could have been a form. This could have been Slack, a Telegram bot, email, whatever else. It's any way you have that's allowed here in the list of triggers you can use, and we are using chat because it is here. When that message comes in, and it could be anything, hey, I would like you to have a look at this page for me, then give it a URL. It might have some query parameters. It might be relative. It might be absolute, whatever. We want to clean up that input and pass only the required information to the agent, which is the node that comes right after this. So this cleanup input, it's literally just an API call to an LLM. In this case, we're talking to OpenAI API, and we are just giving it the entire chat input as a prompt, as a user prompt. But for the system prompt, we wrote a prompt that says this. The user will ask you something about a web page. I need you to return absolute URL for this message, this web page, and the relative URL for this web page. There's a typo here. I'll fix that. So no trailing slash, no query parameters. I want you to return JSON, which is just a formatted response with absolute URL and relative URL keys only. And we also have here output content as JSON. So whatever this node returns is going to be a JSON object that has relative URL of the page and absolute URL of the page. Why do we have those? Because different nodes and different tools further on, some require relative URL, some require absolute URL. Are there better? Are there different ways to format URL? Yes, but we just wanted to show that you can clean up user input, clean up anything in any flow using AI and using an LLM. So Iqbal, your favorite part. Now we have a relative URL of the page and we have an absolute URL of the page. And now we go
just before we do
AI
that,
agent.
can you go up and just type in and input something into chat? And I just want to show you what you get as an input into clean input and how you can drag and drop.
And we're using, should it just put the URL, right? And this is the URL, so I hit enter, and it starts processing, and then you'll see
input. If you can open up that node.
Yep.
The prompt that you see in the messages part, that's what you get from the input is we can just drag and drop this item into that. So we didn't have to type that. We could just see what there is available as the input and then drag and drop that expression.
This chat input. This is the field that you just drag, and add.
Cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
So just to recap this first step before we go to the agent, we have user input, but that user, I'll hide this because we'll show you this later. This user input is really, it's not always going to be clean. You'll need to clean it up. You can't just throw stuff at an agent at any workflow and expect it to work every time. Sometimes you need to clean up that input to make its work easier. So we are taking a chat message. It could be an email that contains a URL somewhere and says, hey, do you mind looking at this page for me or whatever? And then it's smart enough to extract relative URL and absolute URL from this message. And then it sends all that information to your favorite part, Iqbal, and that is the AI
Yes.
agent, our research agent. What does it do?
So if you open up the research agent node, you can see that we've put in the research agent node just has a overall task or goal responsibility that it needs to take care of, and that's what we've put in as the system message. So the system message is just a description of what its scope is and what the overall task is for it to do. So we've given it some context. You're going to write a report for a page, and we want to have some sense of data, where people are coming from, what devices, etc., etc. So if we want to reference some tools, we can reference some tools in there by name, and then it knows what tools to use when. But in a general sense, we don't need to be too elaborate with it, because each and every tool, so if you close that agent and if you open up a specific tool, each tool has a description, and that description tells the agent what that tool does and what it has available to it. So that is additional context that agent will have when it wants to complete a task. You'll say, I've got all of these tools available to me. What tool should I use to get X information? So now, if you close that window, and if you go back to just an overview. So one thing that we mentioned before, but it's worth pointing out again, every research agent needs to have a model. That's going to be its brain, the LLM. It needs some simple memory, and for that, we're just using simple memory, but you can store stuff into a database if you want. And then the other part is it's got the access to the tools, and we've very purposefully divided the GA4 tools into two separate sort of tools almost that do simple different things. So even though they're both GA4 tools, one of them is getting the device category and one of them is getting organic sessions. So that simplifies that by splitting those into two tools. And then there's a Google Search Console, which just basically searches which gets the keyword data and how pages are performing, etc., gets that as additional context. And then we've got the structured output parser, which kind of forces the output to be in a very specific format going into the next step. Anything?
Well, and just to avoid confusion, the research agent is the name we gave this. So this is not some category of nodes in N10.
Yeah,
we just call it research agent because it's researching a web page and getting contextual information. So we talked about this earlier. An agent starts with a goal and then finds a way to get to that goal. Our agent has a goal of getting contextual data for a web page to then analyze that page later down the line in this workflow. So if we have a system prompt, you need to write context report for a page. We want to know the devices people are coming from, if there's enough organic sessions. So it's going to decide if there's enough organic sessions to look at Google Search Console data. If the page has enough search traffic, it's going to look at GSC data. If not, it's just going to ignore that in the contextual report. And then it's just going to return that contextual report using structured output that we defined here. It's going to look like this. So this is the URL that is going to return this URL of the page. This is just demo example, but it's going to follow that example. It's going to give you the report that it generates. It's going to tell you what the most popular device category is, mobile or desktop in most cases, mobile in most cases. And then it's going to give you the most popular width and height of a screen for that particular device category. And we'll use that later to create a screenshot of the page before we analyze it. So let's just look at some of these tools and let's analyze what they do and how you, and by the way, to connect and create all these tools, let's say you got into the get device category, you need to connect it to your Google Analytics account. Because this is a short webinar, we're not going to get into any of that today, but I'll just show you what it looks like. You basically need to set up your Google Cloud Console and set up the access to different APIs and all that. message us if you want, if you need help with this. We'll probably have a PDF that outlines how to create all of these later, but also there's this open docs that you can click, you see the documentation. It's extremely easy to follow, to set it up, and then you get your client ID and you get your client secret, and then you can access the API. Any Google API works the same way. So we have this tool called Get Device Category. What it does, and we set the dates for the report, January to end of July this year, just to have enough data to show, because this is not a popular website we're looking that doesn't have a lot of traffic, but over a 7-month period it has enough. We're looking at sessions specifically. We want to return number of sessions. That's our metric, and we are looking at device category. And then we're splitting that device category by page path and screen class. And we have a filter here. We are filtering by the relative URL, which means the one that our AI call cleaned up and gave us relative URL for a page we mentioned in the chat. That's the URL we are going to get from this API. So let's say this is this product page right here, /product/ the Bolt automatic wallet. It's just going to give us that relative part of the URL to use in this tool. Same thing, exactly the same thing. We'd get organic sessions for a URL, except it's just getting the number of organic sessions that go through this page, that visit this page. So we want to see if people that come from organic search or people that come from paid search or social or whatever are the ones that are seeing this page. And then if the majority of people seeing this page or enough of them are organic, we have this Google Search Console node tool that's just going to get it's a basic HTTP request because there's no Google Search Console node, but it's going to get a list of all the keywords for this URL. So when you go to Google Search Console, you can see the keywords that are taking people to a certain page, impressions and clicks. This is just going to show you all the keywords that lead people to click and go to this page. So we can use all of that as context in our contextual report that we will be using later on in this workflow. Iqbal, do you have anything to add about the agent?
No, nothing to add. One thing though that I think would be useful to do is if we could trigger each and every node as we go and then see what the inputs are available.
That's a good point. Let's just get this URL again, and I'm going to open the chat. It's a new chat, so okay. I need to improve this page. Can you help me? And this is the page. We hit enter, and this is now running. You can see the beauty of N8N is that it's almost magical. It shows you when it's running and what it's doing, what it's used. All of the green lines is the tools that it has used in the agent. So it used all of the tools. And, now it's taking a screenshot of the page. I just follow it here. Uploading the screenshot. It's writing the prompt. We'll get to this later. Don't worry about it now. And then it's going to analyze the image, the screenshot of the page with all the contextual data and everything. And then it's going to store that into the Airtable database. And it's going to respond to us soon. So because it's now done with the first one, we looked at this already. It's extracted absolute and relative URL. And what the agent has done is it has created the report. You can see it here. And it's telling you that mobile devices predominantly, less desktop is, let me just zoom in. So it's like 10-1 mobile versus desktop, one smart TV session, which is cool. And then it has all of the, we're not seeing the full thing here, but it has all of the keywords used to get to this page in organic search. It's mostly mobile and so on and so on. And then if you look at the tools, I think they can also show you here what the output was. Yes. So look at if you look at the get device category, this page is 11,309 mobile sessions, January to July this year. 1,131 desktop sessions, tablet sessions. So this is all going to be used in the contextual report. Same thing with Google Search Console node. It's going to show you that Fosh Bolt wallet. This is the number of impressions, number of clicks, impressions, clicks, click-through rate, and the position. There's a bunch of branded keywords, and that's going to be handy in the report later on. So yes, To recap what we have so far, I'm not going to show you the response just yet, but to recap everything we have so far, we have a chat where we say in free text form, I want you to look at this page. Can you help me with this page? It can get the URL from that chat and get the absolute URL and the relative URL, which we'll use later. And then we have the research agent that has access to device category report from GA4, channel distribution report from GA4 as well, and then Google Search Console keyword report for a given URL. And then it's returning the data in a structured output that we have defined here. So what happens next?
So if you take a look at take a screenshot, we made a simple HTTP post request. As I said, there's no API, there's no ready-made node available for browserless. But you can just follow the Ask ChatGPT, and it will give you all of the instructions to create a custom node like this. So on the left, you've got we've seen what the output is from the research agent, and if you scroll down, this is where we've dragged from the output from the research agent. We've dragged in the URL, and we've dragged in the width and the height to as context for the browserless node to go and take its screenshot. So, and then on the right, that is what the result is after it's gone away and run that. It just kind of confirms that this is what I've done, and here's the type PNG blah blah blah. It's giving you the URL for that URL is that URL is just a page.
That is the page.
But actually, when you go into the next node, the S3.
I'll just note here one thing. Yes, what I'll note here is that browserless API and all those, the documentation for that, you should go to browserless website and see it there. But basically, it's taking a screenshot of this page that's going to be simulated on this device of this size, a mobile phone, and then it's going to be a full page screenshot. So not just above the fold, but everything, because we want to look at this entire thing. And one more thing that I'll just say, when you have any fields like this for input, when something's green, and it starts with double bracket and closes with double bracket, that is an expression. So this is going to be, on execution, it's going to be dynamically inserted. So basically, we're getting from the node called cleanup input, which is our first node after the chat, we are getting the value for absolute URL and passing that to the browser listing. So you just need to make sure it's toggled to expression and not fixed right here. So it can have these code blocks that you can execute.
And just the last thing is what the output that you get. This is what I was looking for. You can see on the output, if you click on view, that's the actual screenshot that's been taken. So you'll see like a...
I don't think I can zoom in here, but let's just show it here. This is the full page on exactly as it looks on a screen of that size, full page screenshot.
And that has that's been created as data, which can then go into the next node, which is where we can
let's look at that. So
upload the file. And the reason why we're uploading a file is because when we go into ChatGPT and or OpenAI node, the AI nodes in general, they prefer receiving a URL to go and browse rather than the raw sort of image data. So
it's also, yes, and also easier. It's also much easier to say, this is the URL, go look at the image. You can upload it to OpenAI as well, but that's a very involved process, and this is just an easier way of handling. Just find a way to upload it and have a public URL. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that, in my opinion. So what this one does, you want to explain? This is your S3 bucket.
This is so I created an S3 bucket and I made it publicly available, and then I've just connected this to the S3 node here. And what this does is it'll take a file name, because all it's doing is uploading a file, and then it just and that's the file.
That's a screenshot. Yep.
And so it basically then uploads the file, and then once it's uploaded the file, it's going to send back as kind of like a callback to say, here's the URL for this image that I've uploaded, and here's some details. So in there, you'll see that there's a location that has been added. So that's the output that you get from that, which can then feed into the next step. So this is a fairly simple sort of node.
It's just an AWS account that we have here that we connected to. We have the credentials that we set up before recording this. What matters is that we have this public URL for our next node. So now that we have done this and go back to the agent, it's created that that report. So the page is predominantly accessible via mobile devices, so on and so on, organic search, all that. We need to do something with that information, with the context, and with the screenshot. And this is our block where we're going to be doing that. And I will let you explain this again.
Yeah. So if you open up the prompt writer node, so what this does is we've created a very specific node to use AI to write the prompt, and we've given it some structures to, this is a kind of prompt that we're looking for. And we filled into that the data, the context data from the earlier nodes, from the research agent. So if you look on the left, you'll see that every single input that is of every single node that has previously been actioned, all of the outputs are available here for us to drag and drop. And what we've dragged and dropped here is the output from the research agent as the kind of like the report, and we're just dropping that into the prompt. So we got a dynamic prompt almost, so which can then be fed into the next step.
Also, everything here, well, we'll be honest, we use ChatGPT to write this prompt, this system prompt. So basically, we're using one AI node in this workflow, and we're using that to write the prompt for the next node based on all the information we have. And you can see it here. I need you to write a prompt for the image model that will ask you to analyze a screenshot of a product page on an e-commerce website, make the prompt 300 to 500 words long, and then use this contextual information, which is the dynamic stuff that our AI agent has produced.
And it's worth adding here as well, is that we could have used a different type of node to just dynamically insert in the research and then just have all of that text around it static. But just wanted to show you that there's a lot of power you can have by having an AI model write your prompts in real time as you're going through these steps. So it just adds an extra level of flexibility and dynamicness. But you could easily just replace that one with a different type of node that just basically outputs a static prompt, and then you just drag in the research from previous. And then when you go,
like we said a few times, we're just demonstrating some ways you can work with these workflows. So this is not the only way, like you said, Iqbal. This is just a way that can make your life easier if it makes sense to use it. So,
And also, if you go into the analyze image, so here what we've done is a very specific type of AI node, which basically points to resource image. So there's a number of different types that's available to it under resource. So if you just open up resource, you could put in text, audio, file, etc., etc. So we've picked image, and we picked in the analyze image as the operation that we wanted to do, picked a model, and then we just dragged in the prompt from the previous.
This is the prompt that was written by the previous.
And then we've dropped in the image URL from the S3 node. And then we've got an output from that, which is just basically content. And this analyze image, just all it does is just prints out content. And we've purposefully putting in, instead of outputting JSON or whatever, we're just outputting in some normal text.
Simplifying.
And a thing that we found out that we had to do was because it needs to read the text and content of the image, best to put the detail to high.
Yep. And also you can limit the maximum number of tokens that it's allowed to use to run the analysis or run the prompt. 5,000 works well enough. This could be higher, this could be lower. It's going to depend on your use case. But basically what this one does is it got the prompt that our previous model wrote, or our previous node wrote, and this is the prompt, analyze the provided screenshot, and then it generated our page analysis based on the context, based on the screenshot, and based on the URL of that page. So going back to summary of this step, this section, we have a prompt writer node that calls OpenAI API and says, hey, I have this context, I have all of this, can you write a prompt that's going to analyze the page based on that? And then we have our analyze an image that is just going to analyze the image based on the prompt that the previous node wrote. Also, it created a record in Airtable, and then the code cleanup is just to return it to chat. So let's look at what it said. So it's supposed to compare to the generic ChatGPT prompt that we started with. Instead of ChatGPT just saying, in general, you should be doing this, this should focus on mobile, and this should focus on organic, and most of all, the branded searches in organic. So we have this output from the chat, and this is the output. This is the output of this analyze image prompt. Let's see if it mentions mobile at all. So you can see clarity on mobile, high percentage of mobile users, the compact mobile display, mobile screens, mobile devices. We're not going to get into if this is just a perfect analysis or not. We're going to get into if it has the context to do analysis or not. This is the goal of our model. So it's very much focused on mobile screens. If you give it different context, it's going to have different context, obviously. And then we want to see if it has any branded terms. Okay, so branded and product specific queries, it's mentioning that, intent of branded searches and diverse traffic sources. So it's taking that into account as well, because we gave it Google Search Console, and all of the keywords coming to this page are branded keywords. So saying Fosh, which is the name of the brand, which is why I wanted to check if it mentions the brand. So that's pretty much what it does. Let's look at Airtable now. I think we ran it a few times. So let's look at the last one that returned. Let's just make this bigger. This is the correct URL. Obviously, this is the product page. And then this is the context. This is what our agent has returned. The number of sessions on mobile, desktop, organic search, all of that. So this is kind of a context report that's given to the next model that's analyzing the page and recommending suggestions, recommending stuff to improve on the page. And then we have the full analysis of the page that's using all of this. And this is what you saw in the chat. It's saved in Airtable feature reference. This could be Google Sheets, this could be email, this could be Slack, whatever you want to use in the workflow, you can easily use. And then finally, this is a screenshot URL, so I can open that and you can reference that at any time. Iqbal, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's a fairly good overview. And just to also just to reiterate is that with the AI agent, we want to try and create self-contained, really focused AI agents to accomplish a very, very narrow task. So don't try and overload the agent with too many tools. So just and just experiment multiple times as you're building these workflows, so you can see, what size of agent is going to work best for your specific needs and when you need an agent versus when you don't. So yeah, I mean, the reason why we used an agent in this case is because it needs to get the GSC, and then based on that, it needs to maybe call GA4, get some data, and maybe call it a number of times to just kind of like get some additional data that it needs to be able to give the output to then take you through into the next part. So it seems like it's a really good use case where we need that non-linear sort of workflow decision, where it doesn't really matter that you need to go through from one step at a time. But yeah, just try it out with lots of different use cases for agents yourself as well.
Okay, we're back. I even wore the same shirt, but I didn't want to try to fool people, so we were very honest about this being recorded.
Good. Well, that was a journey, I would say. I think the chat has been buzzing. I know there were some considerations from Lucia and Abby on how advanced this felt. So perhaps we could address some of this while we're having the Q&A. Now is the time to ask some questions. Now, Abby, we hear you. It's yeah, I am on the same wavelength with you. Why don't we start addressing some of the things that came up specifically? And please, everyone, if you have any specific questions,
I want to do a recap of the entire workflow first, like a 6-step recap, and then we can get into the questions.
That's great, Sani. Great.
Keep it as simple as possible when you're just getting started. If you overwhelm yourself, you're going to quit, and then you'll be at another webinar in 12 months trying to start again. So just keep it as simple. 2 nodes, 3 nodes, just connect them, see what happens, and then add one more. Do something that if you break it, if you do it wrong, it doesn't do damage. So don't have it write an email that you're going to send automatically to your boss, but maybe have it draft an email you're not going to send to anyone, and then see if you can trust it. We showed a few principles in the workflow. One, you can use LLM to write prompts for another LLM in your workflows, and that is extremely powerful. You can use LLM to clean up user input, which you will need to do a lot of times when you cannot do it using some formula. Sometimes it's just text, free text, and an LLM will understand and get some data from that text. Breakdown of what an agent is. It's just in NA10, it's a node that has a brain that is an LLM brain. It has memory and it has tools it has access to, and it has a goal to achieve. So that's what an agent is. It's nothing fancier than that. Sometimes, and I would say most times, you do not need to use an agent. A simple workflow, linear workflow will do the trick, and it will get the job done better than with an agent. When linear and simple doesn't work is when you go for an agent. And number 6 is really get creative with stuff you need to build. Like, think of it as playing with Legos, like a box of Legos laying on the floor somewhere. Pick 2, put them together. Oh, this looks like a house. This looks like a building. This is a pool. And just try building small things, putting them together into more powerful workflows, and you will get better as you go. And it will happen faster than you can even imagine.
Yeah, when the key thing to remember is like for the NA10 workflow, as we've shown it, is there's a lot to take in because it's a really big workflow. But rather than looking at it as the workflow, you basically it's like Lucia said in the chat, just get started, and it's kind of like best as you could do a build as you go. So as soon as you get started on those, start with something simple, a really like Sunny said, really simple task, and then build up from there. But yeah.
Great advice. That's a good. I do wanted to follow up with a few things. I took a note myself. I think I'm going to quote Dennis here: "Progress over perfection." I think that a lot of us here we just want to see the end result, and we want it to work from the get-go, but we're not there yet, and we need to take baby steps, right? So the first thing that I want to highlight is use the LLMs to your advantage. If you don't know how to do something, ask it. It will give you some answers to try so that you can troubleshoot. There's a lot of troubleshooting involved here that I think goes without mentioning, that you need to go through to get to what you guys showed. So that's part of the game. And also just so that you don't die trying, just make sure that you put it in snackable pieces, right? If you wanted to do multiple things, start with those multiple things separately and then put them together. That's another thing that I found really useful. Problem beats solution. That's another thing that you mentioned, Sani, over the webinar as well. Start with a problem, not with a solution. That's something that at least I am I'm victim of. And yeah, I think that's some of the things that I did want to mention myself. I don't know if anybody on the chat has any questions for Sani and Iqbal to go through. It looks like everybody's
saying questions,
thank you.
But
yeah.
Maybe people were not following the chat, so we might read the questions and just go through them so everyone can hear them. I guess not everyone's following the chat. Andy asked Zapier, other workflow automations. Why NA10 over the other? If you just want to get started, it doesn't matter. Like, honestly, pick anything. NA10 and Lindy have good agent nodes, and it makes sense to use them for that reason. So if you want to build a workflow, just do whatever. It doesn't matter at all as long as you're getting started. Like, I'm going on a run right after this. So if someone wants to start running, you don't tell them go run a marathon. You tell them go run for 5 minutes. Just do something extremely basic. And Simon's question we'll get to. I see it in chat again. So Simon asked, how safe is your data if you don't run it on your own server? I know Iqbal and I are AI people pushing AI, but this is my favorite book ever, I think, about how you shouldn't trust AI in big AI companies. Just assume they want something bad. If it's confidential, absolutely never. You can run a local model. Iqbal is better at that than I am, and maybe we can do a webinar at some point about locally run models. Yeah, just don't trust them. They're bad. If you thought social media companies were bad, these guys might be worse. That's all I have to say.
I mean, technically, if you're using the API, the data is bound by their privacy policy. So if you read their privacy policy, they'll outline it quite detailed there. And according to the privacy policy, there might be some retention of the data as it's going through servers, but that retention shouldn't be very long. But yeah, it's the trust thing
No.
at the end of the day.
From me.
So there was another question, another point around usage of different models, and I think that's a really important one to get into, because I think and with the workflow and the N8N workflow that we showed here, the most important concept to take away is just input, node, what the node is doing, output, and then everything else you just build up complexity over time. So that is the key sort of building block that you need to wrap your head around. There's an input, something will be done to generate an output that will go into the next one. Now, when it comes to choosing the models, the reason I say it doesn't matter what model you choose is because I want everyone to get used to creating really small, easy steps. So really small, easy steps, something that even a small model, even an idiot can do.
Idiot model. Let's be clear about that.
Idiot model can do. Then it doesn't matter what model you choose. And I tend to go for the absolute cheapest, smallest model. I go for GPT Nano, which is like the smallest model you can get. And it performs the same as if I were to pick the biggest model with the most sort of, like billions of parameters, et cetera. It doesn't really matter when your task is so simple what size model you choose or what model you choose. And that's the kind of like level you need to get to. So, yeah.
Consider reasoning, right? So if the task is heavy on reasoning and you're relying on the automation on the agent to do some reasoning, then you go to something more comprehensive. If you're just looking to do something simple, I think it will also help you with the credits, right, guys? I mean, does it matter which model you use in terms of credits and whatnot?
Well,
yes,
the pricing is not the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So smaller models are very, very cheap. The nano model, for instance, is super cheap. You wouldn't even feel it in your pocket, honestly. But if you go for the GPT-5 or Claude or whatever, you're going to have to be, frugal with your calls to AI because you're going to burn through credits. But GPT
but it depends
Nano,
on the scale. To be clear, it depends on the scale.
Yeah.
If it's just you working with a workflow and it's not intense, even that is going to feel cheap. If it's a production level app, a lot of API calls, yes, absolutely.
Great. Adrian has just shared local private LLM Olama. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Anything you want to mention about that?
Yeah,
That
you
or
can
LM
definitely go
Studio,
with
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Great.
You can mess around with LM Studio to get started with local LLMs and see how they perform. But yeah, but then the next step after LM Studio is Olama, where you can sort of host your own LLM as a API service that you can plug into N8N. So instead of making these external calls, another reason to keep your nodes really simple, because then you can just swap out the GPTs and Claudes and just point it to a local LLM, and it will work just as well. So that's one of the other reasons to go with simple nodes, with simple tasks.
Great. I think that we have a couple of ideas for follow-up webinars here, which it's very refreshing and nice. I think that we have a BYO session, build your own, where we can do something with the audience, as well as this one about local versus private workflow. So I think that's good. With that said, I believe you guys prepared something for the audience that we can give away. I think there's a PDF involved. Can you mention a little bit about what they should expect from this PDF before we say goodbye to everyone?
Iqbal, you prepared it. Come on, I'm not going to take the credit. You did the PDF.
It's just basically a summary of what we've done and some of the tips around building NA10 and some of the conceptual sort of stuff that you need to understand. Because I mean, the practical stuff, the actual working with NA10, and I know like there are some concerns around that. Honestly, once you get started with it, that's dead easy. The conceptual stuff, that's the stuff that I think is something that you need to understand once you've got a handle on the practical stuff. So the giveaway is, yes, it is there is some comic strip formatty sort of stuff in there, but yeah, and it's kind of like an overview of the flow, and also some conceptual understanding about, these are the kind of things that you need to pay attention to. And then hopefully with that as a baseline, you get a little bit more confidence in terms of just getting stuck in with NA10.
That's great.
What you get, Sunny, you can
go to buildaithings.com, and there's a form. You can put your email. You'll get the PDF automatically. You will also get updates from me and Iqbal when there's a next webinar. We're probably doing it with you guys again, right? So
yeah.
yes, just go to buildaithings.com. I can't believe it was available, but it was. So you can get the PDF there.
Yeah, I think that's a good investment for the future.
Yeah.
But great, guys. I just want to thank you again for all your time and the hard work you put into this. It's been refreshing. I know I needed it. I know a lot of people needed it. We had more than 200 people signed up for this webinar. So it's been great having you. Before we part ways, if anybody has any questions and they don't know you and they're not connected with you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn for both of us, I think. And when you get the PDF, the URLs for our LinkedIn are going to be in that PDF. So and some comic book characters based on us.
Great.
That's some of the pages. Yeah.
Something to look forward to. And then with that, yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us and for spending some time with us. Again, I'm Eddie, the Affiliate and Technology Partnerships Manager at Convert. If you're thinking about jumping into experimentation, or if you're thinking about partnering up in the future, just hit me up on LinkedIn or email, and I'll happily walk you through our different offerings. Sani, Iqbal, thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys. I hope to host you again in